just a hack. It's just an absolute hack. And he gets his ass kicked by his teammates every week. It's just, it's terrible. It's just terrible.
I'm really in on UCLA. I'm very, very in on UCLA and what they're capable of doing. They won this game with tremendous offensive balance and a lot of things that they've done in multiple games so far this season. I was at a point where I didn't think that UCLA was anything to be convinced by. But the way that they played against Utah shows me that they have what it takes to win the conference. And what I'm referring to is offensive balance, splash playability, and the ability to turn the ball over on defense and to do it against really good competition. Utah is still one of the best teams in the Pac-12, despite them losing this game. They're still going to be one of the top teams. They're probably out of contention to win the Pac-12, but they are still one of the better teams in the conference. We saw an offensive attack that Chip Kelly is really in his bag right now. He is back to doing what he used to do at Oregon, which is big splash plays running the ball, huge chunk plays that you're able to pick up through the air. Bobo, their top receiver, looks fantastic. But the big thing here is Dorian Thompson-Robinson, not only is he playing really well, but he fits exactly what Chip Kelly needs at the quarterback position. He's a great athlete. He is a savvy veteran who's played so many games. That offense to put up 42 points against a really, really good Utah defense, is a testament to how good this team is and how they're slowly getting closer and closer to a high ceiling that they have offensively. I am fully convinced, after seeing not that many UCLA games, getting more familiarized with UCLA, and I think a lot of people might know that, despite me being out here in Los Angeles, there was no need to pay attention to UCLA at the beginning of the season. They hadn't played anyone. They hadn't beaten anyone. They put themselves on the radar after beating Washington, and they're putting themselves further on the radar after this game against Utah. But I've watched many games, many USC games, way too many USC games, because out here, that's what the attention is directed towards. You go to a bar, a USC game is going to be on. Very rarely will you find a bar with a UCLA game on. It's always USC that is getting the run, which makes sense. We've talked about on the show the underwhelming commitment and nature of the fan base at UCLA, the lack of people showing up to games, which it seems like they're starting to show out now. There's a lot of focus on USC. And in the media, there has always been a willingness to overhype USC. And I think after watching both of these teams, we're in week 6. We are at the point of separation. They call the first week in October Separation Saturday. The whole month of October is where teams start to separate themselves and prove who is going to win the conference, who is going to make the national championship game, who is going to play in various bowl games on New Year's Eve, the New Year's Six bowl games. And at this point, after watching all these games, I think that I am more convinced that UCLA is going to win the Pac-12 than USC will. UCLA, as I mentioned, I know that they started the season a little bit slow, has shown up in big games and checked every single box, as I mentioned earlier, in order for them to continue to win big, important games. The reason why I'm not that in on USC, and I think that USC is good, and they're trending in a direction that Lincoln Riley is pushing them towards becoming the leading program in the Pac-12, and they're obviously moving on to the Big Ten. He is pushing them in the right direction. That program looks night and day better than what it was last season and under Clay Helton in general. They're actually dangerous, but they have so far this season, most of their wins, most of their games is just beating up on and only winning games by a couple of scores against C or lower teams in the Pac-12 and on the remainder of their schedule. Like, what's their most impressive win? Is it the Washington State game that they just played? Sure as hell isn't Fresno State. It's not Oregon State. they have done enough to win against teams that I think UCLA could beat much more convincingly. I think that UCLA doesn't sneak past Oregon State the same way that USC did. I think that they win that game by multiple scores. There is a stark difference in the explosiveness of UCLA's offense and USC's offense. There's also a stark difference of how they play when they need to rise to the occasion. I don't feel like I've gotten that same sense from USC. I have instead been underwhelmed. And what is disturbing the most for USC is that they have all of these pieces, all of these guys that they went and got. Caleb Williams, Travis Dye, Jordan Addison, just to name a few offensive players that they added this offseason through the transfer portal. And it feels like that they could be putting up 50 points a game, and they're not. Instead, UCLA, the team that doesn't have all these five-star transfer portal guys, they're the ones who's running up the score and putting up all these points and having all these crazy long touchdowns, these huge receptions that set up field goals and touchdowns and all these points that they're scoring. There is a noticeable difference. And when these two play, that is going to be the determination on who is the more legit team in the Pac-12.